Simon, and thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure, Hannah. Always a pleasure.
So, Livium, we've had quite a week. We've had quite a lot of announcements come out this week, specifically around your strategic entry into some new markets. So you've had 3 announcements on this. One of them is a tech development agreement with the University of Melbourne to enter rare earth element extraction market. You had a term sheet with Iron Drive to advance some clean energy waste recycling, and also then another partnership with a Korean leader called Wonquan for solar panel recycling. So tell me about it. What are these strategic adjacencies, and how do they fit in with your current operations?
Absolutely. It has been a busy set of announcements, but on the back of a hell of a lot of work over many weeks, many months. So just to step them through, we're just making sure everyone understands we're Australia's leading lithium-ion battery recycler. We process batteries through to something called black mass, metal dust, which is an intermediate product. And as we've gone through assessing where else we can grow, we see absolutely growth opportunities in that for battery business and recycling business, to increase volumes, more opportunities to improve our footprint geographically within Australia, to process even more batteries and service more clients. But as we've been doing that, we've also started to see opportunities in other clean energy waste. And so in particular, those opportunities lie in being able to process our black mass, actually process ourselves with technology partners. We've seen opportunities to step into solar panels, which we think is a great opportunity to set about being able to dismantle efficiently all the end-of-life solar panels that exist in Australia, and then recover through, again, technology partners on the photovoltaic cells, which are made of silver in particular, and then also rare earths, and particularly rare earth elements associated with magnets and waste that started to come into the market. Early days, but waste that's started to come into the market out of permanent magnets, whether that's out of wind turbines or electric motors in PV. So these agreements we've announced today really support our opportunity to step into those adjacencies. Iron Drive, we see a technology partner who can help us with the processing of the black mass and the processing of the solar panel PVs, potentially also with rare earth elements from magnets. The University of Melbourne is actually a technology that we look to work with the university to develop for the processing of rare earth elements out of permanent magnets, and a very unique technology it is. A lot of features about that we like. And then we see an opportunity with Wonquan to be able to do the solar panels, dismantle them efficiently, because that's really key. And all of these leverage our core capabilities, both with the client base that we've got, but also our core base capabilities of being able to solve our clients' problem. Bring in problem waste, particularly in that renewable clean waste segment, and then pre-process those. And without that feedstock, you can have the best technology in the world, but if you don't have that relationship with the client, you don't have the feedstock, and you've got nothing to really process.
Yeah, okay. So it's only in recent months that we've heard Livium talk about these kind of commercial adjacencies. So when and how did the opportunity come about that you then decided this is something that we really need to pursue?
Look, as we stabilised our recycling business and started to see it move into cash flow positivity and now early stage profitability, we started to think about what else could we do with the business, how was the best way to scale it up. There's still absolutely huge opportunities in front of us to scale in terms of the core business volumes and geographic expansion across Australia to cement that leading position. But as we started to talk to clients started to say, well, actually, I think I might have a problem waste with solar panels. Do you guys have a solution for that? Oh, I've got a problem waste with wind turbines. I've got electric motors that haven't worked, and can you help me with thinking about what's the best outcome for that? And so we started as we started to clients, we saw those opportunities emerging for us, and then we started to think, well, let's do some more analysis, let's do some work, do some thinking, and what would it take to actually be successful in those other areas. Of course, we've always had an eye on black mass processing. We've been working with a number of early stage technology providers in that area, and so all of those things sort of coalesced with us saying, okay, let's start to think and advance in a very thoughtful way into these adjacencies.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned they're rare earth elements, black mass and solar panels. So the average Australian will probably know what solar panels are, perhaps not the others. So how big are these markets? Like, they're obviously worth pursuing?
Absolutely. Look, Australia will always be a relatively small market, but if you look at these things globally, black mass, sort of by the end of this decade is sort of thereabouts is seen as a sort of $52 billion market. Rare earth elements in the next few years, it's a $7 billion market. And then when you talk about EV, photovoltaic cells, you're talking about a $3 billion market. Now, again, Australia is a fractal of that, but the opportunity is huge, and each of those segments, whether it's black mass, end-of-life batteries, which generates the black mass, growing exponentially, use of magnets in various applications growing, use of photovoltaic cells and solar panels, again, all part of the renewable energy story and growing. And it's been a big part of the Australian landscape for many years.
Yeah, okay. So then how much exposure does Australia have already to these? Like, are there government or legislative or industry support that's going to help you enter these markets and then hopefully ultimately succeed?
Look, the regulatory environment for circularity is absolutely increasing, and we've seen that in Australia with initially batteries, with New South Wales leading the way in starting to put in legislation that makes mandatory producer responsibility for end of life. There's push as well to move that into solar panels, and I think increasingly we'll start to see that with other elements like whole of vehicle recycling and circularity in EVs, well, in cars generally, but particularly EVs. So the regulatory we see those as tailwinds. A lot of the client base are people who are focused on their ESG credentials, making sure that they do play a part in circularity. And increasingly, as everyone looks forward, all of these elements are in high demand for the future. And everyone realises that trying to deal with virgin production and just relying on that is probably going to lead to a shortfall of these critical materials being available. And so securitising that critical materials availability through recycling is an increasing part of the government agenda globally, but including Australia.
Yeah, okay. So then if we talk specifically about the relationship you've got with the University of Melbourne, it is to develop a microwave technology for or rare earth element extraction. What is that, and how is that different from existing methods? Because I presume it's not the typical way that one would expect to use a microwave.
That is very true. The principle is the same, but we're not talking at the moment of the thing that we might many of us may have in our kitchens, but the principle is the same. The beauty of this microwave technology, and look, rare earth recycling is still emerging and getting nascent. There's a few people, and there's many, I'm sure, viewers of this webinar will be alert to elsewhere in the world who are making claims about what they can recover, etc. But what we liked about the University of Melbourne as we looked at this landscape of technologies was two key things. Microwave technology is low energy, and so that's going to be a key part of anybody's process, being able to do that in a cost-effective way, given the price of energy is where it is, unlike the increase in the short term. The second thing that we really like about the University of Melbourne technology, and the reason why we've entered into agreement with them, is the yield rates that they can get from waste material look really high and really attractive. So, what do those two features mean? It basically means as you move through the commercialisation journey, you should have a low cost recovery, and that's high yields using low energy. Some of the other technology that we see out there is, and the process for recovery uses a lot more energy, doesn't have the yield rates that we're seeing out of the University of Melbourne, and therefore their ability to recover rare earth elements will be at a higher cost. And we think always being as low on the cost curve as you can be is really important.
So are there any other types of extraction technologies available in the world, and new innovative technologies, and are you possibly looking at any of them too?
Yeah, look, we are, and part of the relationship that we're moving forward with Iron Drive is also has the potential to include rare earth element extraction with their DES technology. Our primary focus with Iron Drive is around solar PV and photovoltaic cells recovery, and also black mass recovery, but we've certainly allowed scope for rare earth elements. And why have we done that? Well, I think as we move forward, we want to make sure that we're covering a couple of areas, and there may be others that we look to as well, to make sure that we are advancing in the rare earth elements, because we do think that recovery rate is really important, and being able to do that efficiently and cost effectively is going to be really important as you look to sell those rare earth elements that are extracted back into the open market.
Yeah. All right. So, well, that's a good segue actually, because if we move on then to like clean earth waste recycling, as you are doing with Iron Drive, how is that different from what you do already?
Well, it's fundamentally not that far different. Iron Drive are a technology provider, and they'll provide technology and test their technology in the area of extraction of materials, and we think that's a really complementary set of skills to us. Again, if I think about the way we bring in batteries, we solve our clients, the BYDs, the LG Energy Solutions, the Volvos, Ferrari, others. We bring in the problem batteries that failed, or end of life, and we successfully destroy and process those batteries, which can then be reconstituted back into battery salts. At the moment, with our South Korean partner, Sunyoung High-Tech. But our core skill is being able to work with the client base, give them a value proposition that works for a problem that they have, and then bring that in and safely and sustainably deal with their waste problem. We think that that's a core skill that will extend into solar panels. We think it's a core skill that extends into rare earth elements or magnets that need to be processed. And the technology partners, whether it's the University of Melbourne, Iron Drive, will be able to supplement and assist us with getting the full value out of the value chain. But our real core skills is working with our client base, having that relationship with them, the confidence that we'll form, we built up over the last few years, that will perform for them and be able to solve their problem for them.
Yeah. Okay. So with Iron Drive, then you are specifically going to be using or leveraging the technology they've already got, which is this DES technology. So what do you know what that is, and why are you so interested in it?
Look, it's a solvent extraction process. It's seen as having there's a number of players sort of looking at this technology, but we think Iron Drive are the most advanced and the most thoughtful about that. We've had a long engagement with them in terms of making sure that we understand the tech. We've already provided them with samples so that they can work on that tech. They've really started to move on in leaps and bounds in recent months, and we have a really strong relationship with them that's allowed us and given us the confidence to move into the agreement that we've had. But their tech is has a lot of benefits to it, both from a sustainability perspective, but also recovery rates.
Yeah. Okay. So those two, the University of Melbourne and then Iron are partnerships within Australia, but then you've also got this one with Wonkwang, which is in Korea. So why Korea, and who is Wonkwang?
So again, these relationships might not feel like it's a bit of a rush, but we've been speaking with Wonkwang probably since 2023. They're a South Korean technology company, particularly around equipment. They've had support from the South Korean government in terms of the development of their technology and their business, and certainly looking to push internationally beyond Korea. What they've got is a set of equipment and IP that is really quite efficient in the dismantling of a solar panel. So again, the key to success is always how do you do something to get maximum recovery, lowest cost. So their technology, their machinery and equipment can dismantle a solar panel efficiently in terms of time, but importantly, the separation of the panel into its constituent parts quite cleanly. And that's really important to enable recovery. When we looked at the solar panel industry or recycling piece that's been in Australia, and there are already a number of players that have tried and failed or are trying, the two things that we understood to be the cause of not being successful is firstly the efficiency in which you dismantle the panel, how quickly, how many can you do in a minute, and secondly, contamination, that if you don't do it well, you end up with contamination, particularly through the solar panel glass and the PV cells, and that inhibits extraction of the good material. So being able to do it efficiently, being able to do it cleanly is really going to be important, and we think Wonkwang have solved that problem, and we're looking forward to, in a very phased approach, implementing their technology into EnviroStream business.
Yeah, so you've got 3 phases as part of this relationship. What are you ultimately hoping to achieve as you work through them?
Yeah, look, ultimately we're looking to, the first phase is to satisfy ourselves that Wonkwang's technology can work at scale, so we'll be sending them panels, they'll pay us for those panels, and then we'll sit down together and make sure that the aims of what we believe can be achieved will be achieved. We'll then bring in the second phase their equipment into Australia. We'll do that on site. We'll set up mobile operations. And then we'll look at maybe some partnership that can either be built in Australia, a JV of some description perhaps, or alternatively even on a larger footprint. But there, that's still some years away. And again, we want to be seen and we want to act in a very thoughtful manner. We're not just going to rush into these things. We want to make sure that there's these adjacencies, that we can have an economic model that works and delivers value to our shareholders.
All right, so just one final question then before I let you go. What can we expect to see from you, from Livium, in the coming weeks and months, years, in relation to these sectors, on this expansion, or even just perhaps your, business as usual recycling operation?
Yeah, look, our core business is recycling and battery recycling. Centre of that with these adjacencies, add-ons, and including with technology for black mass processing. So what you'll see from us is further announcements around, from time to time, around new customers that we've brought in from battery recycling. You'll see announcements for us as progressing the University of Melbourne technology. You'll see some further announcements around how we've been able to stage forward with Iron Drive and also with Wonkwang, and what those early results look like. But importantly as well, we'll also be looking at entering into in a phased approach into contracts with clients around recovering their solar panels, and doing contracts with clients around rare earth magnets and bringing those into our work stream flow to help advance those agreements that we've signed over the last week or so.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Simon.
Pleasure, Hannah. It was great to chat with you.